So as we're exploring some influences on early America, you're going to fill in this note sheet as we explore the Magna Carta, the Mayflower Compact, the English Bill of Rights, Cato's Letters, and Common Sense. For each of these, you're going to tell me when it was written, who wrote it, what was the purpose of the document, and you're going to tell me what type of document it is. Is it a government document, an agreement between individuals, a collection of newspaper articles, or a pamphlet? So I will tell you there in this one, there are 2 government documents and 1 of everything else. And then with big ideas, as I go into the reading, there are going to be things that are in italics. So look for words that are in italics. These are words like self-government, rule of law, due process. Those are all going to be big ideas that we're talking about. So you're looking for those big ideas, and you will find those in italics. Now we're doing this in Cami. There really shouldn't be anything that you need to do with these other tools, but you'll want to have the select tool open and you can click in these fillable boxes. So when it was written, I'm looking for a date. Looking for who wrote it, I'm looking for an author. What was the purpose of this document? This is going to be a short summary. Give a short. So I'm looking for 1 to 2 sentences. And then big ideas, these are the words that are in italics in the reading. So remember, italics are the ones that are, I can't edit it there, but italics is the one that looks a little bit slanted. And then you always, if you just click these boxes, they will check automatically for you. So that's how you fill in this note sheet, which I will be grading through Cami, so make sure you're getting that done. And otherwise, you're going to fill this in by listening to the reading that I'm about to start right now.
Today we're going to be talking about colonial influences, or influences that come from when the United States was still a part of England. Hey, anyone have any good ideas? Our founding fathers did not invent the American system of government out of thin air. They, like the other colonists, were influenced by many different ideas and traditions. The biggest influence came from their British heritage. Remember, the colonists were British until the American Revolution. Events in British history and things that were happening during their own time affected the way the founders thought government should work. The founders didn't have internet, so they got their ideas from books and other printed materials. What would have been on the minds of American colonists on the verge of a revolution? Let's take a peek at what might have been on the shelf of a private colonial library. King versus Nobles, Round 1. Way back in the Middle Ages, England was ruled by a king who shared some of his powers with the wealthy nobility. The nobility could carry out the king's wishes, and the king would allow nobles to make some local decisions. But in the early 1200s, King John tried to take back power for himself. The angry nobles fought back. In 1215, they created a document called the Magna Carta that limited the power of the king and protected certain rights for nobles. The nobility was powerful enough to force King John to sign the Magna Carta. This was a big deal because it introduced the concepts of limited government, rule of law, and due process. It also helped create the nation's parliament, kind of like Congress in the U.S. I think we took a wrong turn. Fast forward over 400 years. The next document in the Colonial Library is the Mayflower Compact. It was written to solve a basic problem. Who is in charge? The Pilgrims left England in a ship called the Mayflower and headed for the Virginia colony in 1620. A strong storm blew the ship off course, and they ended up in what is now Massachusetts. This area was not under control of the company that sent them, so the Pilgrims were an independent territory. They needed a government, fast. The men agreed to create a new government to follow its rules. In exchange, they would all protect each other. This is called self-government. King versus Nobles, Round 2. Meanwhile, back in England, the Parliament had been battling it out with the king in a series of civil wars. Parliament eventually came out on top and passed the English Bill of Rights in 1689. Like the Magna Carta, this document expanded the powers of Parliament and the people while limiting the powers of the king even more. This document was well known because it affected British people living in Britain and the new colonies in America. Breaking news, colonist style. In addition to older documents, the colonists kept track of what was happening in Britain around the colonies. They couldn't phone, blog, tweet, or watch TV, so how did they come up with the news of the day? In the 1720s, authors using the fake names Cato the Elder and Cato the Younger published a series of newspaper editorials in Britain. The authors argued against the king's heavy-handed rule. These articles were titled Cato's Letters, and they were also published in colonial American newspapers. Cato's letters became so popular that they were collected into a book. Half of the private libraries in colonial America owned a copy. Cato's letters discussed many different ideas, such as freedom of expression, which became very influential in the colonies. Calling for independence. By the 1700s, King George III and Parliament were making more and more demands on the colonies. Many were getting fed up and began to meet to discuss breaking away from Britain. In the mid-1700s, representatives from most of the 13 colonies met in Philadelphia. Here, the founders discussed the options for the future. While these meetings were happening, a journalist named Thomas Paine published a pamphlet called Common Sense in 1776. In Common Sense, Paine did not introduce any new ideas. Instead, he explained the arguments for independence in a way that was easy for everyday colonists to understand. He encouraged them to support the fight for independence from Britain. Just 6 months later, the Declaration of Independence was signed.
Here's what you need to do to make sure you finish everything today. First thing, take the quiz. You know the deal. 3 questions, 6 points total. 1 point just for answering a question, 2 points for getting it right, 0 points for not getting it done on time. Open book, open note, and open internet. Find the answers where you need, but I recommend going back and listening to the video to find answers. Then we need to complete the review activities. They're checked for completion, and answers are provided on the following slides, along with guidance and instructions to find the correct answers. So make sure that you are following along with everything that happens on the next couple slides, and we get our work done on time.